OJ Simpson literally changed the world that we live in, all over the place. And classes need to be taught on OJ Simpson, on his life and on the trial and everything associated with OJ Simpson. Now, 30 years later, and even after his death, the question of whether OJ Simpson did it is still a hotly debated topic. And I'll tell you guys what I believe in just a minute. And you guys can leave what you believe down in the comments because he changed the world in the fact that it was literally the beginning of the 24-hour news cycle. The OJ event on June 17th, 1994, was the beginning of the 24-hour news cycle because everybody remembers where they were during that slow speed chase with Al Cowlings. TV stations literally interrupted coverage of the 1994 NBA Finals, the finals, to broadcast the incident live. And it wasn't an audience of 10 million, 20 million, 30 million. That'd be insane. It was 95 million people who watched it. Think about how many times that Ford Bronco got said. I'm wondering if that was good or bad for Ford because that's a lot of advertising for your vehicle, whether it's infamous or in great terms. And I don't believe that there's too much of anything, maybe outside of the 2016 election, that has actually divided America like the OJ Simpson trial. But it wasn't because black folks thought he was so innocent. And it was bigger than him being America's hero because it was the smile, the commercials, the movies, the fact that he was a great athlete. All of that kind of played into it. But this was a bigger thing that needs to be studied and talked about, and why we still care about it to this day. Because I was in high school and we literally watched the trial in class. I was at the school that his daughters had attended, his son ultimately graduated from. So it made the connection a little bit closer. And I literally remember it like it was yesterday. The date that the verdict was announced, it was a Tuesday, October 3rd, 1995. Now, I was at a PWI, predominantly white institution of higher, of well, not higher learning because it was high school, of learning. But there were all sorts of people there. And the reaction was crying, disbelief, and everything else because white folks in general were absolutely sure that he was guilty. And black folks, I'm not sure if they knew he was guilty, but they wanted him to get off. And neither side could actually look at the trial objectively. They couldn't see the forest for the trees. And even in 2016, a poll came out and 83% of white Americans and 57% of black Americans believe OJ Simpson committed the murders. So now remember, this is prior to the docu series with Cuba Gooding Jr. and the other one as well that came out in 2019, 2020. It was prior to that, which painted things in a whole different perspective, and people were so far away from it that then they could, see things potentially a little more clear. Now, OJ passed away, and one of the things that TMZ wrote in their story about it was that the tweet went out that he was surrounded by family and his children. So the fact that even TMZ said, the tweet, all of that, that said that his children were still a part of his life and all of that, that brings other questions, right? Now, whether OJ did it or not became an unfortunate parody for the Chappelle show, Saturday Night Live, and every other comedy situation. And unfortunately, as well, it became a litmus test for your blackness during that time. Because people, when you would talk about it, they'd be like, "Oh, you think OJ did it? Man, get out of here, man. You over there with them." But in hindsight, it was not actually about whether OJ did it or not. And that's the fascinating part about it, is that the reason why it captivated the world It actually had more to do with external factors and the characters involved in it than the fact that one of America's heroes was accused of killing his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and Ronald Goldman. So we got to take a look at what was actually going on in the country and during the trial, the actual figures. Because of course there was OJ, but black folks during that time, they have long and justifiably felt wronged and railroaded by the criminal justice system. Whether it's sentencing, whether it's people making up stories and lies, or what they felt wronged by the justice system. And then, not too long before that, just a couple years before the OJ trial, 4 officers in what was really like the first thing that got caught on film and part of a trial, which was the Rodney King beating, where you had 4 officers literally get off who were caught on tape. Like they were caught on tape stealing boxes. They were beating an unarmed man, even if there was a struggle effort, it was over. And they got off. Trial got moved to Simi Valley, got off. But then 13 days after that, 15-year-old Latasha Harlins, she got killed by a convenience store owner, and it was an older Korean lady who got convicted of voluntary manslaughter. She got sentenced to 10 years, but had her sentence suspended and was given 5 years probation and a $500 fine. So black folks with these 2 incidences and some other ones surrounding it, they felt like, hold up. People can literally get caught on film or even get convicted and not go to jail for doing things to them. So the timing of this OJ thing, it was perfect for OJ because black folks wanted to win and some benefit of the doubt in the criminal justice system. Because both of those 2 things that I mentioned actually are some of the things that led to the 1992 riots. And the OJ trial actually provided the perfect opportunity because if this had happened before the Rodney King beating or even before the trial had finished, he probably would have been convicted or even now. But here are the figures who factored into it. You had Mark Furman, who was a racist cop and N-word enthusiast who collected German medals from World War II. And remember what side they were on. And we got a word for them. And Mark Furman and the LAPD, they literally could not get out of the habit of cutting corners and planting evidence to just let the evidence potentially convict the man who it was all pointing at. You had Christopher Darden, who prosecuted OJ's getaway driver and former NFL player Al Cowlings. And then he got moved over to help prosecute OJ after that. And he was a member of a black fraternity in college, but he ended up getting looked at as an Uncle Tom by so many people. And the whole Uncle Tom Sambo thing, that's a whole nother discussion. Look it up. Now, you also had another figure, Marcia Clark, who was treated about as poorly by the tabloids as any woman in the entire 1990s outside of Princess Diana. You had the judge, Lance Ito, whose wife had once been Mark Furman. The irony, Mark Furman's superior officer, and Mark Furman had been taped bashing Ito's wife. So then you had the prosecution trying to spend a bunch of energy trying to get the judge thrown off the case. But then you had the defense team for OJ Simpson, the dream team. Robert Shapiro, who went on to found LegalZoom. Obviously, that was a win. Robert Kardashian, whose kids turned out to be American royalty and some of the most famous people on the planet. You had Johnny Cochran, who his one-liners like, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. It actually made him one of the most parodied characters on television. Even Seinfeld had a Cochran character. Then you had F. Lee Bailey, who was probably most responsible for getting OJ acquitted for how hard he went after Mark Furman. And that dude ended up later getting disbarred over drug trafficking allegations. Now to the other people. Yeah, Kato Kalin. You remember him. OJ's tenant who was in LA, dude was trying to get famous and ended up way more famous than he ever imagined, just not in the way that he wanted. You had Paula Barbieri, who was OJ's Victoria's Secret model girlfriend, who said OJ was with her the night of the murders. You had Faye Resnick, Nicole Brown's so-called best friend and star witness for the prosecution. She dropped a tell-all book right in the middle of the trial. Oh, so she didn't have any motivation for being a part of it. Barry Scheck, who the defense used to attack the terrible policing and investigative methods that the LAPD had at the time, he went on to go co-found the Innocence Project. So all of these people and even more went on to have other impacts out in the world. Yet Gil Garcetti, who was the actual district attorney guiding the trial strategy. And if the Garcetti name sounds familiar, it's because his son is now the mayor. And then you have the Goldman family who went through hell just trying to get people to notice their son and care about the fact that his life was taken because he was the forgotten victim of all of this. But you had the fact that evidence was tampered with and that you had people who couldn't be trusted guiding the investigation. And so that's where black people just wanted to win. They're like, look, how can you convict this man with all of this evidence that things were done wrong? And it's almost like they were trying to frame a guilty man, and that's how they treated somebody. And if that's really how the LAPD and everybody else was treating somebody that all the evidence was pointed at, how were they treating people who were actually innocent that they thought may have done it? And the OJ trial, the civil trial at least, is what actually led to a guilty verdict. The Goldman family still trying to recover money from that now. OJ ended up going to jail in Nevada, trying to trying to get his own stuff back that somebody stole from him. So he did go to jail for a while. And then over 25 years later, docuseries, everything, and we are captivated, did numbers. But now here's the question. George, did OJ Simpson do it? Because I just got asked this recently. I don't know. And I know that you are screaming at your televisions right now or your phones. You don't know? No, I don't know. All of the things that I pointed out. But what I do believe that OJ is probably responsible for it. Even if his hands didn't do the stabbing, he probably had something to do with it. Now, can I say for sure? No, because I wasn't there. It wasn't no tape. And there's so many things that went wrong along the trial. And we've all seen circumstances where things look like they're pointing to one person, but it's not actually them. So do I believe that he most likely did it? Yeah. That a serial abuser and all that stuff killed his ex-wife because she was dating somebody he didn't want to? Probably. But do I know for sure? No. And I think that that's the thing that keeps this thing going. And you guys leave in the comments whether you believe OJ did it. Do you believe that he got a fair trial? And how all of these things impacted the country. And that's why I believe that this needs to be studied in school, because all of these factors actually factor into a lot of our criminal cases, particularly the high profile ones. You guys, this is the Unafraid Show. Make sure you come back. We always going to have great content here. Peace out.